welcome to our open house. We decided to hold it after the election, figuring we'd get a huge turnout. And I think people are preoccupied and kind of taking stock of things. So nevertheless, this is our last event of the fall quarter and end of the year, and it's our chance to really focus some attention on the arts and on the kind of work that the center has done since 1969. And so I'm just going to keep my remarks brief, introduce the curator of the exhibition that we're opening as of today, and then invite you to come out to the patio where we have Casablanca doing the usual great job with catering. In fact, just so that I could give you accurate information, I did test the quesadillas when we walked in. And I can tell you that they are up to their standards as well as to our standards. So I will encourage you to go out there while they're still warm. And if somebody's pushing you out of the way and everything and they're wearing a blue hoodie, you know, it wasn't me keeping you from that. So what I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about the exhibition that we have here and how it ties in with the mission of the center, and then introduce Karen to come up and say a little bit more. But about a year ago, it seemed, David Avalos contacted me, and he's a public artist in San Diego. And a project that he and Hock and Elizabeth Sisco had done in 1988 for the Super Bowl when it was down in San Diego. They were in the process of trying to make sure that copies of this work were archived. And so he's saying, you know, do you know anybody at Lockmud? Do you know anybody at the Whitney? And so I opened the doors, and they ended up getting the prints of a public art piece that originally was on the metro buses into these collections. And they said, you know, by the way, for helping us, we're going to give you a copy. And I said, that's perfect, just send me the options. And they sent like about 6 or 7 of these. And one of them was actually the only surviving print that was actually on a bus. So we're not sure you're going to want this because it really stinks from the exhaust fume, you know, 30 years later. I said, are you kidding? This is the artifact. This is what really was there going around the city during the Super Bowl. And as you'll notice, the title of the piece is also written across it, which is Welcome to America's Finest Tourist Plantation. And it was really a statement about the condition of labor, and particularly of Latinos and undocumented workers, relative to what is supposed to be this great symbolic moment in our kind of national public life. Right? And this is one of a number of pieces they did that it ultimately played out by the end of the 80s and what became known as the Cultural Wars, and around issues of public funding for public art and for the arts more generally. So this piece, as part of bringing it into the collection, we also got one of the concurrent prints that were done but never shown on a bus. We agreed to install that permanently in a hallway. So as you're heading down towards Casablanca, you'll see it there in our hallway just to the left at the end of this hall. And you'll get a sense of what it was like, what was really circulating in the city at that time as an artistic intervention in a public ritual of the Super Bowl at a key moment to really use that to bring awareness to what some of the underlying issues, what is making that ritual possible, what is making it possible for us to feel so American, and that we've come together in a friendly rivalry in order to affirm the value of our city's team, right? What's making that possible? Who's making that possible? And I think it's probably more timely now than ever before as we prepare to see a giant wall built between two countries that have perhaps the closest economic and cultural ties of any two countries, and where the populations overlap to a considerable extent ever since the 1910s. So that piece is part of our effort to, as a research center with a library and an archive, to document these histories, to make them available for scholars, to make them available for museums. A lot of the works that are in our archive collections aren't just looked at by scholars or students writing articles, papers, books. They're looked at by curators that are trying to make kind of cutting edge exhibitions about the state of culture over the last 50 years. And we've had things that we've never thought of as art, but were collected and organized by artists as part of their research in what our popular culture is producing. They've been shown as art pieces at major biennials, triennials, throughout the Americas and in Europe as well. So it's our way of really holding on to that history. And what we wanted to do was have an occasion to kind of draw attention to what's going to be on permanent display, but also focus a light on some of the other collections that we have that reference public art. And I'll let Karen say more about those other pieces. But it was really a pleasure to be able to work with Karen. We collaborated with her when she was director of the Vincent Price Art Museum and established something that is ongoing, which is that we collaborate on exhibitions. We also collaborate on public programming. Because every time we do something here, we'll get a lot of people turning out, but I'll also get a lot of emails saying, really, I have to drive 3 hours and then I have to pay $12 for parking. And so I thought, when we're doing something we really believe in, it's a really, we think, a powerful speaker or program, we can also do it at the Vincent Price Art Museum. And when they're doing something we're really jealous about, we can bring that person here. And we try to do that, once, twice, 3 times a year to tie in with the academic year. We've also collaborated on exhibitions. And the first was really, I think, just a groundbreaking effort to bring attention to an East LA photographer, Ricardo Valverde, through a comprehensive showing of his work. And what we did was we commissioned the chief curator from the Museum of Latin American Art shortly after they released her, and brought her in because we figured, well, this is a Chicano artist. He is sorely under-recognized. She is one of the preeminent Latin American contemporary artists. Why not see what she has to say about him? And really open up that dialogue, and it did. So it's a pleasure to have Karen working with us on this, and I'd like her to say a little bit about her vision for this and the works, and we'll head to the back and have some quesadillas.
Thank you, John. Thank you. So this exhibition at the center would not have been possible without many of the talents both at the center and also at UCLA, and I want to recognize the people who helped bring this to fruition, Rebecca Epstein and Mike Stone, and Sean, of course, for inviting me, and then also the great talent from the Fowler Museum, Christian de Beer. One of the things that Sean didn't mention that I think really the center deserves so much credit for is the custodial care that they've provided for a lot of the pieces that are on display here. The bus poster indeed was on the back of a bus, and who knows how long it was in a kind of cardboard housing with the artist now for 30 years, but the way that it's displayed on the wall, the north side of this building, it will last 100 years. And I think that the center deserves so much credit for seeking out the most careful means to conserve these pieces, and that also applies to the other pieces of the artists on display. There are 4 artists in the show, Ramiro Gomez, Daniel J. Martinez, and Sandra de la Loza. And Ramiro's pieces that are in this room, they were really, or in his vision, these are pieces that really are not collected. In fact, when he stages his interventions, the piece, for example, here on the wall, is a gardener, and if you were to look at some of the photographs from 3 years ago when they were placed outside this building. He generally will put his work in the public, whether it's on a street or here on a campus, and then walk away. And so it's kind of finders keepers as far as his work goes. However, the pieces that ended up here in the collection have been conserved, and they're also going to be around in 100 years, and I think that that's wonderful. The artist may not even be thinking that far ahead yet about his practice, but this is a great gift to researchers, future borrowers of the pieces that the center has. In putting together the show, just a couple of things that occurred to me are that the earlier work, and when I say early, it's from the late 80s, 1988 for the bus poster, as well as a piece that was part of a 1993 outdoor installation on the East Coast at Cornell University by Daniel J. Martinez. They're both done very much in a style of advertising, and so it's interesting, I think, Barbara Kruger, Jenny Holzer, some of the really well-known artists who kind of place their work in the public domain. That was one of the strategies, I think, 30 years ago that was very popular, to kind of come at people in a very unexpected way, to make them do a double take, because the language that they were used to seeing on the street, so to speak, would be commercial, and now artists had kind of usurped that territory. And so both of the pieces that are in this show reflect that kind of strategy or approach. And then the two most recent works or bodies of work from Ramiro and from Sandra, they're both really looking at the body and really representations. I find her video that I saw first when it was on display at LACMA as part of Pacific Standard Time, the first one in 2012. It was completely mesmerizing. It was projected on a wall that was about 20 feet high, and I was just speaking with someone here tonight. Even when you look at it, you can't quite figure out what you're seeing, and it's so well done. The artist was a resident scholar here. She went through over 500 images of murals that were documented in the 1970s, and she used the patterns, designs that struck her as kind of unexpected in the murals from East LA. And I don't know Photoshop or any of those programs, but she makes it look so effortless, and it's really a beautiful piece, taking the artwork from the street and bringing it kind of into this, corporeal environment. Ramiro he's a rock star now. I own his book. His book came out, I think, this year. It's a monograph. Lawrence Weschler did an interview with him. Who knows where this artist is going to end up? There's something really fresh about his work, and it could come off as one note, but I think it has a deeper resonance. And I love the pieces that are on display in here. The library is more like a museum gallery setting, so they don't quite have the punch that they would if you were walking, across campus and you sort of unexpectedly encountered one of his pieces, which is his preferred way of engaging with his work. But I think they look pretty terrific too. So it's really nice. This was a great experience, and as somebody who's taken archival classes, but I wouldn't call myself trained in the field, but someone who also really appreciates the importance of documentation, of keeping the, ephemeral in the archive. I love the show, and I think one other thing that I want to mention about the earlier work that's here is that there's so much material about these artworks that lives on also kind of online from the different editorial reactions to the work. And I think that would probably be something for the center to consider, to kind of grab that material so that it becomes kind of part of the provenance of the pieces, because as you can imagine, if public art funds are used to support a piece that's in fact critical of the agency in the sense that provided the funding, that it really blew up in the city of San Diego in the 80s, and the artists were very strategic in how they were able to, in a sense, circulate their image and their message, almost like a ripple effect. The more people who said that they loved it or hated it, the more people who then knew about it. So that became kind of part of the piece, and probably should stay with the piece. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be a guest curator here, and I look forward to the next project.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can actually see the open house in which Ramiro first presented these works. Which year was it, Rebecca? 2013, yes. And in Lawrence Reichler's book, it's very gratifying for the center and what we do. You read in there, and he's one of the great art critics of our time, and he says that Ramiro got his start at that show. And it brought international attention. We had documentary crews here from all around the world. It was kind of like what you're saying about the media, extensive media coverage, and it was a really nice mixture of work like this that he was doing as an intervention, and attempts to bring that work into kind of gallery art forms, the magazine pages that he would paint on and things like that. So I'd like to just do two things now before we head out. One is to acknowledge our staff here who've been doing great work above and beyond what can be expected, but that's what we have to do to really keep pushing the mission forward. But I'd like to acknowledge our staff, Connie, Heather, Cheyenne, Rebecca, and Darling, among others, Mike. But what I'd like to do now is a way of transitioning, and of course our Associate Director Charlene and the Chair of our Faculty Advisory Committee, Vilma. Part of what we're able to do is we get people really putting all in to make things happen. We produce at a rate that goes well beyond our scale. We have a press that publishes any number of books, catalogs, 2 journal issues every year. And we're also producing exhibitions, because it's the only way in which certain kinds of changes will happen in museums. Not if the museum does it, because they won't, but if we do it with the museum. And that really has led to a turning point in the exhibition of Chicanos in art museums in Southern California. And we've done 5 or 6 of them here. And one of those, the first one we did, is actually listed in a recent publication as one of the 50 most important contemporary art shows in the world. So we're having that impact, and museums are seeing what we do, and they're very glad to work with us in that regard. We move towards a point where these things just happen in the museums, as they should. What I'd like to do in terms of transitioning is to bring up another staff member, which is our new librarian, Javiera Flores, and have her welcome you officially to the library here, the ship that she runs, and to offer to work with you if any of you need to want to come in and find out more about our collections and services. And then she'll clang the bell for Casablanca. So Javiera.
guys. Welcome to the CSRC Library. Like John said, this is the space where we provide library service, but also archival services for students, but also researchers, and not just UCLA affiliates, but basically everyone. You know, this is for the community, the UCLA community, but also for the Chicano community, the LA community, and the Chicano Latino population everywhere. So I'm really trying to focus on education and access and research. Starting here, I just started 4 months ago, and it's been amazing. This is kind of my dream job, so I'm so happy to be here. And I'm also really hungry too. So, so yeah, let's go eat. And like John said, if you guys ever need any help or anything like that, I'm always here. So, and available.
Great. Well, thank you, and we look forward to her really fully moving this library forward. We've been very active, and will continue to be. I'll just supplement what she said, that our most diehard users of the archive and the library here are scholars in the Nordic countries of Finland, Sweden, and Norway. They usually come here between, figure out why, January and March. And they are responsible for the world's first dissertation on Chicana photographers, among many other topics. So we really host a global cohort of scholars, graduate students, faculty, as well as Javier pointed out, we're embedded here in LA, and we do our best to help document and also serve to the back, and we'll continue there.